Here's the less than a minute of the Kentucky Derby, and then John Moss is going to try to help us put all this into perspective with his history and insight into horse racing. Here it is.
Zozos is next after 3/4 in 1 minute 10 and 4/5 seconds, and now Epicenter comes splitting horses and is moving up quickly as Crown Pride takes the lead around the far turn. It is Crown Pride battling with Messier. They're stride for stride. Epicenter and Zozos in behind them. Cyberknife swings up on the outside. Sandon gets the rail run, and they're into the stretch. And it's Messier, Crown Pride, and Epicenter is coming up on the outside. Epicenter has taken the lead as they arrive into the final furlong. Sandon is coming after him. Epicenter and Sandon, these two, stride for stride. Simplification down the outside is next. They're coming down to the wire. Epicenter, Sandon, Rich Strike is coming up on the inside. Oh my goodness, the longest shot has won the Kentucky Derby.
Oh, my goodness. I got goosebumps watching that, and I know what the finish was like. John Moss joins us, former sports director at KTUL, horse racing aficionado as well. John, have you ever seen anything like it?
You know, I'm glad you got goosebumps, too, because just hearing it back, Larry Colmus with the call of the decade, I mean, that was unbelievable. Have I seen anything like it? There's been one bigger upset in the history of the Kentucky Derby, and I don't think any of us were close to being born yet. That was back in the early 1900s. So, no, I haven't seen anything like that. That horse looked like he was going 100 miles an hour compared to the other ones as they neared the line. That was incredible.
Yeah, and John, if you listen to it, just from a broadcaster's perspective, you can tell that he's setting up to talk about Epicenter, because that's what it looks like is about to happen, and then the most ridiculous 9 to 10 seconds ever happens, and it was so great. And we were talking about this earlier. Was it the jockeys in front of Rich Strike that kind of moved their horses to the outside, or was that luck or skill? What happened with Rich Strike where the seas kind of parted for him right there so he could make that jump before he had to kind of slalom through the other ones?
You know, Sonny Leon, the Venezuelan jockey of Rich Strike, rode one of the best races I've ever seen from a jockey of his caliber, and that's no knock on him. He's running at this track, this in the middle of nowhere track, has no graded stakes. He's been the leading jockey there for 4 or 5 years in a row, but I mean, that's like calling yourself. I mean, there's no competition, right? So for him to ride like that, the move he made when he cut down to the rail and then swung out to the 3-path to get around the horse that was tiring in front of him, it was such a fantastic move. So you got to give all the credit to Sonny Leon. But what set that up is the fastest opening quarter mile in the history of the Kentucky Derby. Like, we all knew there was going to be speed. You know, my dad and I talked about it. He talked about it on the air. But no one knew it was going to be that kind of speed. And so it really set up for Zandon, who was the best closer in the race on paper, but he was a little too close to the pace. And so it was just a perfect storm. When that happens, that's when you get the Mind That Birds and the Giacomo's and all of these horses that are just crazy odds. It's when the race falls apart in front of them. And Rich Strike, of all horses, was going to take advantage of it.
You know, in a golf tournament, sometimes you can have a couple of guys who will tee off last because they're in the lead or they have obviously at least a 1 stroke, but sometimes they could be up by 3-4 strokes, a leader, and they focus in on each other, and then somebody in the second or third group behind them or in front of them might go out and shoot a 66, and they may play pretty well. Is that what we saw there, them focused on Epicenter and Zandon, and no one saw that coming behind them?
Yeah, to an extent. That's a really good analogy, to be honest. If you talk to any of the jockeys, you have to give every horse in the race some amount of respect, right? Anything can happen. Any horse can win on a given day. But if you gave all of those jockeys, except for Sonny Leon, truth serum, they didn't know much about Rich Strike. They didn't know his running style. Maybe, just by looking at his past performances, you knew he'd be coming late, but it was funny. I was on the phone off and on all day with Kenny Mayne, who I met through my dad when he used to host his horse racing shows, and we were going through the different races. And when we got to the Derby, we spent about 15 minutes talking about Rich Strike. But what we were trying to figure out is how he got into the field, because he only had 1 third-place finish in a Grade 3 lower-tier stakes leading up to this, but it got him just enough points to be on the also entered list or, also eligible list. And then with the scratch, he got into the race. So we were joking, like, how is this horse? I mean, the numbers they weren't even close to the numbers of Epicenters and any of the other horses in the race, just from a buyer speed figure angle. And so there's no way that any of the jockeys, any of the trainers in that race, and he was just put into the race on Friday, mind you. Mm-hmm. So the day before the race is when they found out he was wearing the 21 saddle, breaking from the 20th post. And so there's no way they knew about that horse. The Epicenter was worried about Zandon. Zandon was worried about Epicenter. And then here comes Rich Strike down the rail. It was incredible.
What do you think his prospects are now? I mean, seeing that, that's a fast horse there. I mean, they're all fast horses, but
right.
He's got that late break. What do you think will happen will he be in the next races? I'm sure they'll try to do that, but what do you think his prospects are for the future?
I think it's going to be a lot like Giacomo Remind That Bird, mm-hmm. where you win this race that allows you access and entries into races that you wouldn't have dreamed about if you were that horse's trainer, its jockey, or its owner. He'll run in the Preakness, whatever happens there. He might run in the Belmont. He'll probably run in the Travers. He'll probably run in the Breeders' Cup Classic just because of this win. But it takes a race like that for Rich Strike to be anywhere near the front against that caliber of horses. And I don't know in any other race the remainder of this year, he's never going to see a field that big. He'll probably never see a pace that fast. So I just, he won the race, and all kudos to him and all kudos to the jockey, like I talked about. I thought the horse that performed the best in that race, if you can say that about a horse that didn't win, was Epicenter, because he was the closest to that crazy pace and still held on for second place. So I think Epicenter is going to win the Preakness if they decide to run there. I think Zandon is more of a Belmont horse. So I think those two that finish second and third will win the next two, like the Triple Crown, assuming they run. And I'm not trying to, throw shade at Rich Strike. It's just he needs that perfect setup with his racing style to do what he did at the Derby.
Okay, so that went viral, obviously, and then the finish, when Rich Strike and had others trying to kind of calm him down, because that almost looked violent. And was that just a horse that was full of himself and needed to get maybe a little nuzzle, or what was going on there right there? Tell us.
He was a little feisty after the race, wasn't he? He was trying to bite the lead pony, trying to bite the rider of the lead pony. He just, it's all odds against him at that point, and he was taking on all comers, including lead ponies and their jockeys and everything else. He didn't look like an easy horse to handle, did he?
No. You know what I thought about?
He still had something left.
I kind of thought, because the Kentucky Derby is such a, an elegant event, right, John? I mean, you've been there. It's all, got these ladies in these hats. It's kind of like Andre Agassi when he won Wimbledon. Like that guy's like, I don't care. Rich Strike's like, listen, I'm going to, listen, you're in my way, pony, I'm biting you. I don't need you to lead me anywhere. I just ran around that whole thing pretty darn fast. What are you telling me to do?
Yeah, it's one of those, what the F did we just see? Leicester City winning the Premier League a couple of years ago, Agassi winning Wimbledon. It's like, what did we just watch? And at that point, they're just, it's hard to assign human characteristics to horses, but I could definitely see his attitude in that moment. I think we all could. Like, get the F off me, man.
Yeah.
I just won this race. Like, get out of here.
Okay, so he won $1.86 million for winning the Derby. They bought him for $30,000 or whatever. I got a question, because I don't know how this works. I know if you win these type races, then obviously people want you to they want that horse for breeding down the road. Nothing better than a Secretariat, whatever. But so let's just say he doesn't finish well in the Preakness, or doesn't even race in the Belmont or whatever. How much, by winning the Derby, could he be worth now?
Oof. It's hard to put a number on that. I can tell you substantially more than he was prior to the Derby, 100%. I would probably say somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 20 times more.
Okay.
Whatever that number would have been. I don't really know the specifics of the breeding numbers. If he doesn't Mind That Bird, Giacomo, those kind of horses, I don't know what their stud fees are or anything like that, but there's no doubt he made his owner substantially more money when it comes to the breeding rights, just because he won the Derby. He has that classic Grade 1 winner, on his resume. And so he will fetch more in the shed, but I can't give you an exact number, but it's substantially more than he would have prior to the race for sure.
Yeah. All right. Again, thanks to John Moss. John, you're traveling. So are you just chilling now and you doing podcast on the side? What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I was the sports director at Channel 8 for about 7.5, 8 years. And then I decided I just, it had run its course. And so I didn't sign my contract, went to Denver for about 1.5 years just to get away, and then came back. And I now own a virtual production company based out of Tulsa. We have nationwide clients. And so I'm doing that thing. I'm still doing, video in a different way and doing podcasts, but no longer on the nightly news on the sports desk.
Hey, that can wear you down. That can be a beat down, when you're at night,
Absolutely.
6 and 10 or whatever, and covering things. So was there a specific conversation with your father after the race about, like, how did he describe what he saw?
He called me back. I called him right after the race. He called me back the next morning, and I said, what would you say if I told you I cashed a ticket on that race? They said, I'd call you a effing liar. I was like, yeah, absolutely. He was in the same boat I was. Here's what's funny. After the race, so I'm texting with some friends of mine that live in Tulsa, and I mentioned that the owner of Rich Strike is a retired oil man who lives in Edmond, Oklahoma, which is just north of Oklahoma City, about, hour and a half, 45 minutes from Tulsa. My friend's wife then decides to tell us for the first time, oh, that's my mom's friend that owns that horse. She was talking about him this morning. And her name's Hayden. I was like, Hayden, I'm so mad at you right now, because that's the type of information that if you play horses or you bet in it, if there's a familial, a family connection, you're going to put $2, $5, $10 on the horse just in case, right? I mean, it's just almost like you have to do it if you know someone who knows someone who's in that race. And of course, no one did that because she didn't tell anyone that there was a connection to the owner of that horse. But yeah, my dad said the same things we were just talking about. Like, he said the breakneck, just crazy record-setting first quarter mile really set up for all that, and the closers that were better on paper than Rich Strike were just too close to the pace.
Yeah. John, I have a friend from college who made $800 because he puts $10 on the long shot or whatever.
Yeah, what do you have to lose?
So he just whatever it is, he's got $10. He just says, I'll just put this on there, and he's willing to lose $10 every year.
I mean, at this point, I'm going to start joining him because why not? Like, if the pace is that fast, and in Derby history, it's more often than not a fast pace. So, that's not a bad strategy. What ticked me off the most about that race is I had a pick 3 going into the Derby, and 2 of the 4 horses I had in the Derby finished second and third.
Oh.
So I would have cashed a ticket if that dang long shot wouldn't have come running down the rail, because he was not one of them that I had in my pick 3.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Good luck with what you're doing and the production company and much more. Great stuff. John Moss, a little more insight, background on Rich Strike winning the 148th Kentucky Derby in such spectacular fashion. When we come back,